Hello, and welcome to room 9. My name is Mrs. Huson, and I teach kindergarten at Hancock Elementary, located in the Hancock Place School District, which is in South St. Louis County. Today, I'm here in room 9, which is our region's largest classroom, to teach you a second grade social studies lesson. But even if you're not in second grade, I hope that you'll stick around and learn with me because I have some really cool, fun, interesting information to teach you guys today. So come on and join me. Let's get some learning done. We're actually going to start today with some riddles. Riddles are fun to me. So I'm going to give you a riddle, and I want to see if you can answer my riddle. You can figure out what I'm talking about. Okay, so listen carefully. And once you know what I'm talking about, go ahead and shout it out. Okay, listen to this. I am land that reaches up to the sky. If you climb to my top, you will be on top of the world. What am I? I will give you a little hint. It goes like this. It has a peak. That's right, it's a mountain. If you answered mountain, you are correct. Okay, here's the next riddle. I am land that is low. I am between two tall hills or mountains. My name rhymes with tally. What am I? So think about that. There's a mountain over here, and there's a mountain over here. What's that land between called? If you answered a valley, you are correct. Here's my next riddle. I am land that makes a bump in the road. You may run up me or roll down me. What am I? So think about that. You're driving in a car and you go over a bump. What's that called? Or maybe you roll down it for fun. If you answered hill, you are correct. All right, next we're going to move to, well, I don't want to tell you. Let's keep the surprise. I am a small body of water. You can find me in the middle of the land. Many people like to go fishing and catch fish that live in me. What am I? It's a small body of water. It's in the middle of land, and people like to go fishing there. If you answered a lake, you are correct. That was a lake. I am water that runs. I twist and wind through the land. Bridges go over me, and boats go through me. What am I? You might have heard of the word current. This has a current. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a river. Okay, last one. Let's see if I can trick you. I am water that is very big. I work with other water to surround land. I am the biggest type of water. Whales and sharks live in me. What am I? The biggest body of water. If you answered ocean, you are correct. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? I just gave you some riddles, and all of the answers were things on Earth, like a mountain, a valley, a hill, a lake, a river, and an ocean. Does anyone know what those are called? You're right, those are called landforms. And landforms can be found all over the world. Do you remember last week when we learned about this? This was called a globe, okay? And if you look closely at a globe, you can actually find those landforms that we were just talking about all over it. So, for example, one of the landforms that we talked about was mountains. And if you look very closely, in the United States is where we live, right? There's these little pointy things drawn on the globe to show where mountains are. And we already talked about how all of this is ocean, right? And we talked about how you can see lakes on the globe. And do you see all those little blue lines? Those are the rivers. So something that you might not see on the globe would be hills, valleys, because valleys are where mountains meet at the bottom, the land in between two mountains, okay? Now there's other things on the globe and on maps that we can find all over the world, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But what I'd like to do now is talk to you about those different landforms. Okay, a mountain. Well, what is a mountain? So a mountain is a landform that is higher than the surrounding area. Okay, so they're formed, usually earthquakes form them, or maybe even eruptions from a volcano can form them. But mountains go up higher than the land that surrounds them. Okay, so a mountain looks like this. Okay, that is a mountain, or those are mountains. There's a few mountains in that picture. So those are mountains. The next kind of landform that I would like to talk to you about, I actually don't have a picture of, but it's called a plateau, okay? And a plateau are highlands that are flat at the top, okay? So they're not a hill and they're not a mountain, but they are a little bit higher and they're flat at the top, okay? There's also valleys. We talked about those valleys. So here's what a valley looks like. That land that's down here in between two mountains. Okay, so those are low-lying areas of land between hills or mountains. Those are called valleys. There's also hills. So they're not as high as a mountain. They're a little bit more rounded. They don't come to a point, but they are higher than flat ground. And then we talked about a few bodies of water as well. Oceans. Oceans are the largest body of water on Earth. There's lakes. Lakes are surrounded by land. And then there's rivers, and rivers flow. They have a current. And they're windy. They're usually long and windy. So let's see if we can use our globe to find some of those things. So I already pointed out the mountains to you and the oceans, but if you look closely, remember I told you we live in St. Louis, Missouri? There's actually a large river that's right by St. Louis. Does anyone know what it's called? I bet you've even been there. It's really close to the arch. That's right, it's called the Mississippi River. And the Mississippi River runs right by St. Louis. The mountain range that's in the United States is called the Rocky Mountains. That was that big mountain range over here. But did you know that there's actually mountains and rivers all over the world? For example, we can go all the way over here to Asia, to a country called India. And the largest mountain range in the world is right near India, and it's the Himalaya Mountains. And we can go over here to Africa. This big continent right here is Africa. And near the top of Africa, there's a country called Egypt. Egypt has a river that is huge called the Nile River. And it's right here. You can see that blue line that flows. That's the Nile River. Isn't that interesting? You can find mountains and rivers and lakes all over the world. And of course, oceans, which we've talked a lot about. All right, now that we know a little bit more about landforms, I would like to do a landform sort. So I have a whole bunch of pictures right over here next to me. And I would like you to help me sort them and decide if they're land or if they are water, okay? All right, so the first one I would like to show you is mountain. Do we think a mountain is land or water? If you said land, you are correct. So we're going to put it right here under the word land. The next is river. Is river land or water? That's right. If you said water, you are correct. So we'll put it right here under the word water. Our next is ocean. Is ocean land or water? That's correct. It's water. What about a valley? Now remember, the valley is where the two mountains meet. Now be careful because this picture could trick you. Valley is the land that is between the mountains. A lot of times you will see a river that flows through the valley, but the valley is the land that is at the bottom of the mountains where they meet, okay? Volcano. Ooh, that's an interesting landform. Is that land or water? You're right, it's land. Do you want to know something really interesting about volcanoes though? Volcanoes can form above the water on land, or there can even be volcanoes underwater. There are lots of volcanoes under the ocean, on the ocean floor. That's so interesting to me. All right, our next is waterfall. Now this one should be pretty easy to figure out because a waterfall has the word in it, water. Right, exactly. So we're going to put that right over here under water. Next we have a lake. Is lake water or land? Right, that's water. That's where we can go fishing. You can go fishing in any body of water actually though. What about hill? Is a hill land or water? It's land. And our last one, this is another one that could stump you. Island. Island. So an island is actually land that is surrounded by water. So it is land. Now there are some other landforms that we don't have on our list back here, like a peninsula. And if you look very closely, let's go over here to the United States. Do you see right here? This is Florida. Florida is a peninsula. And what that means is that it is surrounded by water on 3 sides. So an island is something that has water all the way around it, but a peninsula is something that has water on 3 sides. How interesting. So let's talk about St. Louis, Missouri, where we live. We said that we have a river. We actually have a few rivers. Some are small and some are large, like the Mississippi is a very large river, but there's also the Missouri River, and there's some smaller ones as well. Do any of you have a lake near where you live? Maybe you live in Lake St. Louis. If you live in Lake St. Louis, you probably have a lake near you. Or a pond. A pond is even smaller than a lake. Growing up, my grandparents had a big farm, and on their farm, they had a lake. What about mountains? Do we have any mountains in St. Louis? No, we don't have any mountains in St. Louis. Do we have hills? Yeah, of course we have hills. But if we don't have any mountains, what do you think about valleys? Do we have any valleys where we live? No, no valleys. You have to have mountains to have valleys or hills. And you'd need big hills. So there might be some valleys if you're thinking about a little bit further south from St. Louis. There might be some valleys if you have some tall hills where you live. Okay, the next thing I'd like to talk about is climate. So climate is like how the weather, the temperature, that sort of thing is around where you live, okay? So I have a few different climates here that I want to talk about. The first climate is the polar climate, okay? So look at this picture and it will give you some hints about what the polar climate looks like. So a polar climate has very cold temperatures. It's very cold there. It has little sunlight in the winter. It has little rain or snow. And it's very common near the North Pole. Okay? So polar climate, if we look at our globe, the North Pole, remember last week we learned about a compass rose and we learned that north was up here, okay? So this is the North Pole, all the way up here. So this would be the polar climate, all the way around up here where the North Pole is. So it's going to be very cold there. Very cold, not very much rain or snow, but a lot of ice, okay? So the water freezes into ice. So up here, North Pole, that's where you're going to see that polar climate, okay? Also down here at the South Pole, okay? The South Pole also is going to have that polar climate because they're near the poles, okay? The other climate or another climate is the tropical climate. So the tropical climate is going to have very hot temperatures, lots of rain. It's going to be very humid, and it's common near the equator. The equator, what's the equator? Well, let me tell you. Do you see this blue line right here that goes all the way around the globe? Well, that is the equator. It's an imaginary line that splits the earth in half. And we just learned that the tropical climate is near the equator. And the reason why is because when the globe is tilted, or whenever you're looking at the earth, it's tilted on an axis, which means that this part of the earth is going to be closest to the sun. It's going to get the most direct sunlight, okay? It's going to be the warmest. So as the earth spins through the day, you can see that everything that's near that equator is going to be a little closer to the sun. So some areas on the globe that are tropical, if you look here, this is South America, this continent. So parts of South America are on the equator or very close to the equator. So it's going to have a lot of tropical climate here. And also there's a big part of Africa that has a very tropical climate. And if we look at Australia, so here's the equator, right? Here's Australia. Part of it is very close to the equator as well. So it would have a tropical climate. And if we go back over and look at North America, we can see, did you guys know that Hawaii is one of our states, but it's not very close. So here's North America, right? And here's the United States. And all the way over here is Hawaii, okay? And look how close Hawaii is to the equator. So Hawaii is a tropical climate. All right, we also have a moderate climate, which is where it has warm winters, hot summers, humid from heat and rain, lots of hurricanes and storms, and common near eastern coasts. So that, if we're talking about the United States, if you look over here, this is the eastern coast, okay? So it's not too close to the equator, but it is near the ocean because remember, a coast is where land and ocean meet. It's going to be very warm and humid, lots of rain, lots of hurricanes. So hurricanes come from the ocean. There's storms that come from the ocean. Okay, so since they're on the coast, they can have more hurricanes. We have the dry climate, hot temperatures, very little rain, sandstorms, and they're common near the equator. So this reminds me of like a desert. I want to show you guys something. If we look at the continent of Africa, Africa has the largest desert in the world, the Sahara Desert, and it spans all of this area. And look how close it is to the equator. It's quite close. And deserts have a lot of sand. They're very hot, very little rain, and a lot of sand, so they can have sandstorms. And the last climate that I'd like to talk about today is the continental climate. So it has 4 seasons with extremes. That means it can get very cold, it can get very hot, it can be very rainy, it can be very windy. Tornadoes and thunderstorms are something that happen a lot in the continental climate. Heavy snows can happen, and they're common in the center of continents. So think about that. That sounded a lot like the climate that we have here in St. Louis. Are we towards the middle of our continent? We live right here in St. Louis. Are we towards the middle of our continent? We are. So we have a continental climate. Now, what's interesting about that is that we have all 4 seasons. Since we're a continental climate, we have all 4 seasons. We have winter, where it gets very cold and we get a lot of snow. We have spring, where it's kind of humid and we get a lot of rain. We have summer, where it gets very hot, and sometimes we don't get very much rain and it actually causes a drought. And we have fall, where it can be very rainy and windy as well. In the spring, we have a lot of thunderstorms and chances of tornadoes. So we are a continental climate. Let's think about how climate can affect the way that we live. If you live in the polar climate, way up here at the top of the earth, you're likely going to have to dress very warm because the weather is very cold. Think about what you would eat. In a climate that's all the way up here where it's very, very cold, are you going to be able to grow a garden in your yard? Probably not. So what types of food do you think you would eat in a polar climate? Maybe you can go to the store and get some of those foods, but if you had to go out and get your own food, what kind of food do you think you would eat in the polar climate? You'd probably do a lot of ice fishing. So you'd eat a lot of fish. You might eat a lot of elk because they can live and survive in colder weather. So if you go hunting, you might eat elk. Okay. Let's think about if you live in the moderate climate. Okay, so that is where you live off the coast. You're going to live near an ocean. So again, you're probably going to eat a lot of fish, right? And remember, the moderate climate has a lot of rain. It's very humid and warm. So how do you think you would dress in this climate? Would you wear a winter coat? Probably not. You'd spend most of your time in a short sleeve shirt and shorts. Then we also have the tropical climate. So that is that climate that's near the equator, right? So near the equator, it's very warm, very hot, very tropical, very rainy, and humid. So you're probably, again, just like that, the moderate climate, you're going to be wearing clothes for warm weather, hot weather. So short sleeves, tank tops, shorts, flip-flops, those kinds of things. If you lived in the dry climate where it's really hot and there might even be sandstorms, you are actually probably not going to wear short sleeves and shorts because you might risk getting too much sun exposure. So a lot of times people who live in these really dry climates, they may wear shorts and short sleeve shirts, but if you live in an area where there's sandstorms, you need to cover your body a little bit more. So you might wear a really light colored clothing that covers your whole body to keep you protected from the sun. And then here in St. Louis and in all the other places where there is a continental climate, we get to dress for 4 different seasons, right? So think about that. Right now we're in autumn or fall, and most of you are probably wearing pants and long sleeve shirts and maybe hoodies or light jackets. But pretty soon the weather is going to turn to winter, which means it's going to get extremely cold. So you're going to need those hats and those gloves and mittens and coats and probably even some snow boots, right? And in the spring, it starts to warm up a little bit. So you'll still need to wear maybe a long sleeve shirt and pants, or there might be days to wear shorts and short sleeves. And then in the summertime, it gets nice and hot. So you can wear those clothes for the summer, flip-flop shorts, t-shirts, all those fun things, right? So I think it's interesting that in St. Louis, we get to experience all 4 seasons. Do you guys enjoy experiencing all of the seasons? I know I do. All right, friends. So there you go. Now you know a little bit about landforms, you know a lot about climate, and you know how it affects where you live, how you live, and the clothes that you wear during those seasons and different climates. That's all I have for today. I had so much fun learning with you. I hope you have a great weekend, and don't forget to come back and join me again next Friday. Bye.
Teaching in Room 9 is made possible with support of Bank of America, Dana Brown Charitable Trust, Emerson, and viewers like you.